Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so if you're a content creator, a YouTuber, or really anyone who has ever tried to piece a video together, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. The second you decide to start editing, boom, immediate choice paralysis. You look at the market and there are dozens of options. Some are totally free, some cost hundreds of dollars, some look like you need a master's degree just to understand the interface, and others are literally just sitting right there on your phone. Well, today, we're going to extract the core insights from professional editors and map out a definitive, totally practical guide to choosing the right video editing software for you. Hooking your audience, maintaining retention, going viral. I mean, we all want it, right? But it leads us to the ultimate question on every single creator's mind. Which editing software actually gets views? Like, do you really need a Hollywood-level suite to make a viral video? Well, the truth we found in the data is that the answer doesn't lie in a single magical download link. It actually lies in a very specific journey. And to understand that journey, we really need to look at the tools themselves. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We are going to track the timeline of a creator's growth, starting with beginner tools, moving up to Final Cut Pro, witnessing the massive clash between Premiere and Resolve, tackling the AI showdown, mapping out your upgrade strategy, and finally revealing the ultimate secret. Let's dive in. Section 1, starting out beginner tools. Look, if you've never edited a video in your life or you only have a tiny bit of experience, diving straight into complex software is just a guaranteed recipe for burnout. You've got to start at the foundation tier. Notice the contrast here between the old reliable and the new champion. For years, iMovie has been the go-to. It is incredibly simple. If you're in the Apple ecosystem, it's absolutely amazing for trimming clips, throwing in some B-roll, some text, and music. It actually prevents you from getting overwhelmed because the toolset is deliberately limited. But then we have CapCut. CapCut is available on virtually all devices, and it's a cross-device absolute powerhouse. It honestly feels like it was custom-built for modern social media. You want a face filter? One click. You want text to perfectly track to your shirt as you walk around? One click. It does the heavy lifting for you. They are both essentially the automatic scooters of the editing world, which is exactly what you need to learn to balance before you go out and buy a motorcycle. But what happens when you max out those beginner tools? That brings us right to Section 2, upgrading Final Cut Pro. Let's take a look at this middle grounds, specifically for all the Mac users out there. Final Cut Pro feels like the most natural next step if you started on iMovie, for sure. The interface feels super familiar, it's very intuitive, and it operates on a beautiful one-time fee rather than hitting you with a painful monthly subscription. However, there's a catch. When we look at the reality of Final Cut today, it's actually surprisingly slow to roll out modern updates. For instance, it lacks built-in AI auto captions, which is basically mandatory for YouTube and social media right now. If you want to do something like simple background removal, you often have to go out and buy a third-party plugin that might cost you $100. Suddenly, that one-time fee really doesn't feel so final, does it? Which brings us to the climax of our explainer, Section 3, Going Pro, Premiere versus Resolve. When creators are finally ready to make editing a serious profession, they look at the industry standards. Enter the heavyweight title fight. The glaring differences between these two titans really come down to workflow and stability. Professional editors are actively having to choose between these two right now. Premiere Pro has been the commercial go-to for years, but it has a pretty notorious reputation. It's prone to frequent, sometimes even daily, crashes. Plus, it hits you with that monthly subscription cost. Furthermore, if you want to do complex motion graphics in Adobe, you have to do this thing called round-tripping, sending your project out to After Effects and back into Premiere, which is a massive workflow hassle. On the other side of the ring, we've got DaVinci Resolve. You can get an incredibly powerful version of it for completely free or pay a one-time fee for the studio version. It is highly stable, brilliantly optimized for modern computers like the Mac M1 chips, and best of all, it's an all-in-one suite. Color grading, motion graphics, text, the whole shebang happens right inside one single program. But DaVinci Resolve doesn't just win on stability, it brings actual Hollywood-level tools right directly to your desktop. It has lightning-fast auto caption features that transcribe your audio in seconds, and it features something super cool called the Magic Mask. You can literally click on a subject, like a person walking across the frame, and Resolve isolates them instantly, allowing you to drop text or completely new backgrounds right behind them. It is absolutely amazing to see this level of professional power available to anyone with a laptop. However, all that raw professional power is currently being challenged by a massive disruptor. Section 4, the AI feature showdown. Let's pivot to the tech that is rapidly changing the entire editing landscape. Let's see how this builds on our beginner discussion. We mentioned CapCut earlier, but we really need to talk about its AI. CapCut just gives you this instant AI arsenal for free. One-click auto captions, instant background removal, advanced tracking. But here is the truly mind-blowing part. Performing these tasks in professional software like DaVinci Resolve is highly resource-intensive on your computer. It makes your fan spin loud and your computer heat up. CapCut somehow achieves these complex effects instantly, and it hardly uses any processing power. It's literally doing things in seconds that take heavy rendering in pro software. And this brings us to a quote that perfectly summarizes the current state of the industry. Because CapCut is so fast and capable, quote, a lot of the traditional softwares out there feel like they're slow dinosaurs. CapCut is successfully closing the gap between the absolute beginner and the seasoned professional video editor. Think about it. When you can achieve 90% of the result with just 10% of the effort, the legacy software truly starts to feel a bit sluggish. Now, to be totally fair, professional software isn't just ignoring AI. Adobe Premiere leans heavily into powerful, specialized AI integrations. For example, if you run a podcast, there's a Premiere plugin called Autopod that will literally automatically switch camera angles and cut your entire multi-camera podcast for you. That is incredibly powerful. But for the everyday creator, CapCut wins on immediate, built-in, one-click speed for fast social media turnarounds. It's basically the difference between hiring a highly specialized robotic factory line versus just having a really smart multi-tool right in your pocket. So, with all this incredible software out there, when should you actually make the jump? Section 5, when to actually upgrade. Let's map out a strategic decision-making process for your personal creator journey. I want to give you a concrete 3-step roadmap to completely eliminate your choice paralysis right now. Step 1, start simple. Seriously, download CapCut or iMovie today. Step 2, learn the core principles of editing first. Pacing, storytelling, cutting out the dead air. Do not worry about the software yet. Step 3, upgrade to Premiere or DaVinci Resolve only if you want to become a career editor. I'm giving you full permission right now to just stick with what works. You really have to confront your long-term goals with this exact question. Are you editing for life or just for the next 6 to 12 months? Because look, if your ultimate goal is to grow your channel to the point where you can finally hire an editor to do all the work for you, why on earth would you spend months banging your head against the incredibly steep learning curve of DaVinci Resolve? Let your future editor use whatever they want. For now, you just use what is easy so you can actually get your videos published. This leads us perfectly into the grand philosophy that ties this entire software debate together. Section 6, the ultimate editing secret. Burn this concept into your memory. Editing theory and best practices get views, not the software itself. I mean, a terrible video edited on a $10,000 Hollywood setup is still a terrible video, right? But an amazing, well-paced, highly engaging story edited on a free phone app, that can absolutely go viral. Avoiding fundamental editing mistakes and mastering the art of the cut is infinitely more important than whether you use Premiere, Resolve, Final Cut, or CapCut. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this. Consider your path. Are you trying to be a lifelong editor who geeks out over color grading and motion graphics? If so, absolutely go download DaVinci Resolve right now. But if you're a creator who just wants to get your message out to the world until you can pass the torch to someone else, grab CapCut, keep it incredibly simple, and just focus on the story. The choice is yours. Happy editing and keep learning.